Hello, my name is Charles Daniel, and this is my presentation on my topic, militias. Now, when I started researching, I asked the question, are state or private militias still necessary to ensure the will of a free state under the Constitution? This is a very interesting question to ask and a conversation that needs to be had across the nation more openly than before. I chose this topic, the topic of militias, because of my fascination with American history and my own family history. My family has fought and bled for this country since 1754, when the first militias rose up to fight for king and country against the French and their Native American allies. And once again, we rose up in 1776 in defense of a new nation, not yet born, but soon independent. I chose this picture in particular because it correctly illustrates that will of the American people to fight. In the center of the picture, we have a man loading his musket, ready to fight the incoming redcoats while he stands amongst his fallen brethren. And the men behind him fighting as well. This shows the will of the American people to fight for what they think is right or what they believe in. Back then, it was the idea of independence and the creation of a free state. Now it is to maintain that, to continue to be sovereign and independent states. Now, when I actually started researching, I looked at a podcast, a Student of the Gun, episode SOTG 1054. We are the well-Reagan militia. That's the episode. And at 22 minutes, that's actually when it starts talking about the issue or the topic. And they talk about how the terms, the Second Amendment, which is tied with the idea of a militia, has been changed so drastically that it does not mean what it once was. Nowadays, we think regulate to mean something like control or govern. But the Founding Fathers had a different idea in mind. Instead, the Founding Fathers thought regulate meant, well, it does mean disciplined and ready. Well-regulated means to be well-disciplined and well-armed. That's what they had in mind for the Second Amendment and for the militias that would soon protect the country. And militias nowadays are different, of course. People say the National Guard is a militia. They're not. They're government. They work for the government, and as militias, not government. They are free, independent citizens who are more than willing to take up arms and fight for their homes, their cities, their towns, their state. That's the militia. And when I looked at articles for this very topic, most of it was arguing the matter of what is the militia. Some of the articles talked about citizens taking up arms shortly after situations of serious government mistakes, like Waco. Like Waco, where the government made a terrible call and cost the lives of 72 people. Granted, those people were also under suspicion, and they went in trying to detain. And a mistake is a mistake, but yet that caused a rift between the American people that's so large that it could possibly never be healed. From there, militias started to rise up, and many of them followed a particular standard, one that is very similar to how the Founding Fathers intended. Public militiamen who were very public about their opinions on protection of, their state, their homes, and their lives, their livelihoods. And these militias grew out of a growing discontent with the government. Fearing that it would become tyrannical, they decided we should band together and prepare. Others were more open about it. Some decided to form private cells, small and secretive. Other articles stated what become of the original militias that were formed. Many of them saying that they became the state guards and the National Guard, the Army National Guard, and how each state now has its own standing militia instead of one that could be called up. Each state has a state defense force. That's a militia, to a degree, of course. But those men, while being volunteers, are loyal to the state. They are also technically loyal to the government, despite the fact they weaken warriors. Another thing I looked at, and that's the thing with this. The idea of militias is so controversial because of what ties into it. The Second Amendment, the right of the people, are potential defiance to the federal government. That scares some people. Yet it is a part of who we are, and we've lost sight of that, I feel. So, back to the question. Are private or state militias necessary to protect the will of a free state under the Constitution? And I believe that answer to be yes. We are in certain times and in troubled waters. Sometimes it is the people that make the decision to defend themselves or to do what built our nation in the first place, and that is to rebel. Something that they talked about in the podcast, of course. I can't help but wonder what that would mean for the country.